Welcome back to Glow and Flow Radio, where we talk about the hard things with honesty, compassion, and zero judgment. Today, we're talking about depression eating, not the kind of emotional eating that happens once in a while, the kind that happens when depression has taken over your life and food is the only thing that still feels good. When getting out of bed is hard, when showering feels impossible, when everything is gray and heavy and exhausting. But food? Food is there. Food is easy. Food doesn't require energy you don't have. If you've ever eaten because it was the only moment of comfort in an entire day of darkness, you're not alone and you're not broken. This episode is called Depression Eating When Food Becomes Your Only Comfort, because sometimes it is, and that's okay. Take a breath. Your feelings and emotions are safe and valid here. Now let's talk about it. So, what is depression eating? Depression eating is different from other types of emotional eating. It's not necessarily fast or frantic like anxiety eating. It's often slow and disconnected. You're really eating without tasting your food. You're just going through the motions. And you're eating to seek a dopamine hit. Food is one of the few things that still triggers any pleasurable response for you. And that's something that I personally can relate to. I often will eat food because I'm stressed out. There have been times when I've had a hard day at work and I just want something good to eat, something comforting. And that's because food offers that dopamine hit. Food you may eat because you have low energy and you're eating that food to increase your energy. You're choosing foods that also have zero preparation because cooking feels impossible because of your depression and how you're feeling. So you don't feel like cooking. You just reach for something that is quick, easy, and often that's fast food. Is not nutritionally sound. You may eat because you're comforting numbness. You're eating to feel something, or eating to feel nothing. Is highly individual. The only self-care when everything feels too hard. Food is accessible. And here's what people don't understand about depression eating. When you're depressed, your brain's reward system is broken. And I hate to use that word because you're not broken. It's just something broken in that reward system in your brain. Nothing feels good. Nothing brings joy. Everything takes so much energy that you simply do not have in that moment, except food. Food still works. Food still gives you a tiny hit of dopamine. Food still feels like something. So you eat, not because you're hungry, and definitely not because you're weak. Because food is the only thing that depression hasn't taken from you yet. And there is no shame in that. And I must say that we're speaking today about, excuse me, depression eating on the side of using food for comfort, overeating. But there's the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So when we talk about emotional eating, it's not just overeating and eating unhealthy foods. It's also related to people who don't eat when they're depressed. And some people don't eat and they lose a drastic amount of weight. Other people, when they're depressed, they overeat and they gain weight. So what I'm speaking about now is when you're eating and seeking that dopamine hit and that comfort from food. But I did want to acknowledge that there's another side of this emotional eating coin, and that's when people move away from food because of how they're feeling and their depression. So, speaking on depression and using food for comfort, why does depression make you reach for food? So we have to talk about that. You know, what's happening in your brain and your body when depression drives you towards food. And I've already mentioned the dopamine hit. So depression actually reduces dopamine. So it causes a dopamine depletion. And dopamine, remember, is the feel-good chemical in your brain. Well, depression actually reduces the dopamine. Food, especially high sugar and high fat foods, gives you a temporary dopamine boost. And again, it's a temporary boost. So you often find that you eat that food and it gives you that dopamine boost. And then a little while later, you're wanting to eat again. Even if you're not hungry, you're wanting to eat again because you want to increase that dopamine. You want to feel good. And your brain is not being bad. It's trying to feel anything besides empty and sad and stressed and depressed. It's trying to alleviate those feelings. So it's guiding you towards food to increase the dopamine that it's needing, that it's craving. Depression drives you towards food for energy conservation because depression is exhausting. I deal with depression. I have been battling depression for decades now. And I can tell you, whether it's been decades or it's been months or it's been days, it is exhausting. I understand. Because I've been there and I'm still, it's an ongoing battle. And if you have had depression, if you've been diagnosed with depression, you understand that. And you continue on this healing journey. And I can say right now, thankfully, I am in a good place, but it's an ongoing, I hate to use the word battle, but it is in some instances, and battles can exhaust you. Your body is fighting for you. And it's fighting a battle that most people can't see. And your brain looks for easy sources of energy. And food is the easiest source. Now, of course, there are other sources of energy. Movement, exercise, can actually, believe it or not, increase your energy. Some people, feel like if they exercise, they're going to be tired and drained. And maybe in that moment, depending on how strenuous your exercise was, but you will find that over time, if you increase your movement and your activity, it will actually boost your energy. But in this sense, we're talking about food, right? And so depression depletes your energy. Well, your body is guiding you towards food to increase your energy, to use that food to give you that energy boost that you need. Depression drives you towards food because, excuse me, I'm getting over a little something, so I apologize in advance for all the coughing and throat clearing. But because the body lacks an alternative for comfort. Because when depression takes over, when you can't enjoy your hobbies, you don't want to see friends. A lot of people, when they're going through a depressive episode, or even people who aren't dealing with depression, if they're going through something, a lot of people will self-isolate. So you don't want to see your friends. You can't find motivation for hardly anything. Even things you used to love feel pointless. But food, on the other hand, well, food doesn't require motivation. Food doesn't judge you. Food is just there. And that's why if you encounter someone who has never dealt with depression, or specifically using food for comfort, maybe they have maybe they have depression, but they have another means for dealing with their depression. And you have someone else who's been using food to self-heal, so to speak, or is not really healing necessarily. Again, it's a temporary boost in all of these instances, whether it's boosting dopamine, energy, or what have you. It's a temporary fix, and that's the reason the cycle continues with emotional eating, even related to depression, because you get that temporary boost, and then you go through that depletion again, and so you go back to food to feel good, to increase your energy, or what have you. But that cycle is what keeps excuse me, what keeps people in this loop of shame, guilt, and that can lead to other things like weight gain. So you feel depleted, you feel sad, you eat. It's a temporary dopamine high. You feel good in the moment, and then you start to feel depleted again. Everything starts to go back down, and so you eat again, and you feel shame for that. You might feel guilty because you're doing that, and it may be causing weight gain, and you feel guilty about that. So, and that guilt makes you feel worse, and so the cycle continues. That's why you see these people on these weight loss television shows. A lot of them speak on their trauma, unresolved trauma, and things that they've gone through in their lives that has led them on the path to overeating. And we look at people like that and it's like, wow, I can't believe they eat that much. But they're eating like that because they're stuck in that loop. And until they deal with the depression, the anxiety, the sadness, the stress, the trauma, until they get on that path to healing the underlying issue, they'll continue in that loop, that emotional eating loop. Again, I do apologize for all the throat clearing. Um, Now, let's talk about the illusion of control. We'll pivot a little bit because I can go on and on and on about the emotional eating loop, but I want to talk about the illusion of control. When everything else in your life feels out of control, your mood, your energy, your food, your job, your spouse, your kids, your past trauma, food is something you can control. And that's another part of why people tend to get in that food emotional eating loop and stay there, because unlike everything else, food is something that it's within their control. You can choose what to eat. You can decide when. You can have that small moment of agency. Even if it's followed by shame, in that moment, it's yours. And that's why we have to be careful about judging people who are eating, overeating, and they're overweight. And you may mean well by pointing out that they're overweight, but trust me, you know if you're overweight. You don't need anyone to point it out, but you don't know what that person is dealing with. And unless you have something constructive to help, just telling someone that they're fat and they need to eat less and move more is not going to help them. It's actually going to make things worse in most cases. Because again, shame and guilt is part of that loop. And they have to get out of that notion of shame and guilt in order to be able to offset that loop and move into a healthier means of dealing with their trauma, their depression, their anxiety, or something outside of food. So I had to say that because, again, shame, if you shame someone as a means of trying to help them, it has the opposite effect. And if you're listening and you've ever been shamed, or you listen to some of these health gurus who use shame as a tool, you know that is, in most cases, 99.9% of the time, is not helpful. So let's dig a little deeper into that shame spiral while we're there. Let's talk about what happens after depression eating. You eat, you get a brief moment of relief, maybe even pleasure. And then the thoughts come. I shouldn't have eaten that. I have no self-control. I'm making everything worse. I'm never going to get better if I can't control what I eat. I'm pathetic. I'm fat. I'm a loser. And the self-depleting inner dialogue can go on and on. And now you're not just depressed, you're depressed and ashamed. And that shame deepens the depression. The depression drives more eating. The eating creates more shame. And again, that loop. You're in that loop. And that's the depression, eating, shame spiral. And here's what you need to know. If you're the person listening who is dealing with depression and you're using food to alleviate those symptoms, to feel better, to feel something, to boost your energy or what have you, because you don't have any other means of coping. At least you think you don't. And you feel ashamed. Well, let me tell you, that shame is lying to you. I don't care what anyone else is telling you. That shame that you're feeling is lying to you. And if someone is trying to shame you into eating the way they feel you should be eating, then it's shame on them, not on you. Eating when you're depressed doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Food is supposed to be comforting. That's not a flaw in you. That's food doing what food has done for humans for thousands of years. That's the reason you hear the term comfort food, because everyone has a comfort food. Everyone has a food that they turn to for comfort. Some people, though, continue to turn to that food for comfort because that has become their means for dealing with their trauma, their stress, and in this case, what we're talking about, their depression. The problem is we've been taught to feel ashamed of our own humanity. And shame is not the answer. If shame was the answer, then obesity would not be an epidemic in our country. We would not have a mental health crisis because people, fortunately, we're moving to a time when mental health is better understood and is not such a stigma tied to it. And people are seeking help and therapy more often now than they did when I was younger growing up, because you were taught that you had to be strong. You just had to pray more. You just had to, and it was something in you that you needed to increase. More faith, more prayer, more resolve. And I'm not saying it's anything wrong with faith and prayer. I'm a person who walks by faith. But you should not be made to feel ashamed of your own humanity, of your mental health issues. And I'm glad that we're moving towards more acceptance in that regard. Because often we were taught that, we were taught that we shouldn't have to go to therapy. You just pray. Well, there's room for both in the healing journey. You can have both in your toolkit, and that's fine. So I'm glad that we're moving away from that notion that we need to hide our mental health issues and we should be ashamed of it. And we need to move away from the shame of the emotional eating, the overeating, the binge eating, the emotional eating loop, the cycle. You do not have to be ashamed. That is normal. It is human. It's your body trying to help you mitigate your circumstances. It's trying to help you deal with your trauma, with your symptoms. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. And again, shame is not going to heal anything. It hasn't worked thus far, and it's not going to work. Just like shaming people didn't help with the mental health crisis that has gone awry in our country. But having open discussion and dealing with the root cause of our issues, that's the only way to heal and move towards a healthier you. So speaking of moving towards a healthier you, what do you do when cooking feels impossible? One of the hardest parts of depression eating is that when you're depressed, preparing food can feel overwhelming. So you eat what's easy, fast food, delivery, snacks that require no preparation. The same thing over and over because deciding feels too hard. And then diet culture comes in and says you should meal prep, cook healthy meals, plan ahead. And that's all well and good. Of course, I would not speak against cooking healthy meals or even planning ahead. Planning ahead pretty much makes sense for just about anything, right? But when you're depressed, getting out of bed is the achievement of the day. Showering is a victory. And they want you to meal prep. Let's be real about what eating well looks like when depression is active. And if you have been diagnosed with depression, if you're dealing with depression, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say when depression is active. The depression meal plan, and this is the no shame edition, right? So when I speak on this, I want you to remember this is a depression meal plan. And we're not tying shame to any part of it. And this is not something that I'm saying that you need to do rigidly. This is just an example because it's highly personal to everyone. We all have our food likes, dislikes. We have allergies. There's all kinds of things. But to give you an idea, this particular depression meal plan includes peanut butter straight from the jar, cheese and crackers, maybe a bowl of cereal, toast with butter, frozen meals you can microwave. And you can even find healthier versions of those if you like. Rotisserie chicken from the store already cooked. That is actually a pretty great option, right? You have the rotisserie chicken, no prep involved, and many times it's very tasty. Pre-cut fruit, granola bars, whatever you can manage. This isn't bad eating. This is survival eating. And survival eating is enough. You don't need to earn your food by cooking it from scratch. You don't need to prove you're trying hard enough. Who are you trying to prove it to? The only person's opinion that matters is yours. So you don't have to prove anything. You just have to eat, and that's it. While you're going through that depressive episode, you just need to get through it. You need to, at that time, working on your emotional eating has to take a back seat, and you have to deal with your mental health, your depression. Now, here's the cruelest part of depression eating. You eat because you're depressed. Then you feel ashamed for eating. We talked about that. And the shame makes you feel more depressed. And the cycle continues. The shame becomes another reason to feel hopeless, which is why shame does not work. And it has never worked, and it will never work. You have those negative self-talks with yourself. I can't even eat like a normal person. I can't do anything right. I'm never going to get better. And it may be other things that you say to yourself. But you need to rewrite the narrative. Because here's what's actually true. The eating isn't making your depression worse. The shame is. Food isn't the enemy. Depression is. And shaming yourself for trying to survive depression does not help you heal. It just gives depression more ammunition. So what if we tried something different? What if after depression eating, instead of spiraling into shame, you said, I'm going through something really hard right now. My brain is struggling. Food helped me get through the last hour. I'm doing the best I can. Would that feel revolutionary? Because it should. Compassion is the antidote to the shame spiral. You have to show yourself compassion when you're going through things like a depressive episode, an anxiety attack, any type of stressful situation that has you turn to emotional eating, turn to food. You have to be compassionate with yourself in those moments. And I'm not going to tell you what to eat. I'm not going to give you a meal plan or a list of good or bad foods. Because again, meal plans are highly personal. Based on your likes, your dislikes, your allergies, your personal nutritional needs. But what I am going to talk about is gentle nutrition. Ways to support your body when depression has made everything harder. So, gentle nutrition principle 1. Anything is better than nothing. So if the choice is between a perfect meal you don't have energy to make or something less healthy that you can actually eat, choose the one you'll actually eat. Because your body needs fuel, not perfection. And I spoke earlier about emotional eating, specifically depression eating, having two sides to the coin. So on one side of the coin, we've been talking about people who overeat, or we'll call it that, overeat to deal with their depression symptoms and their lack of energy and the depletion of dopamine, and because they don't have other means to deal with their depression at that time. On the other side of the coin, you have people who don't eat. Either on both sides of the coin, their energy is depleted. They don't really feel like doing much meal prep and cooking, or thinking about intuitive eating or healthy foods and calories, and they don't have the energy for that in that moment. So on one side of the coin, they don't have the energy for it, so they'll just grab something quick, easy, unhealthy. That's on that side. Then you have the other side of the coin where they may not grab anything at all. They don't eat at all. Either way is not ideal, but it's the best that they can do in that moment. And so if you're on the side of the coin where you don't want to eat at all, then just eating something is a success. And we see it, with, and I can't think of her name right now, but Ozzy Osbourne's daughter. Now, I'm not bringing her up to pick on her or say anything about her body, but she did speak on it. So, and it's a perfect example. She's going through something right now. She's dealing with, I would imagine, she is very depressed over losing her father. And so she had food she doesn't feel like eating. She's coping with her depression, and she's on the other side of the coin where she doesn't want to eat. And I would say most people would want her to eat to be healthier. And I can't speak on her health, good or bad. I can't say that, but, just based on what she shared and, viewing her current state, she's struggling. She's human. And I wish her the best on her healing journey. But with that said, for her, the success of the day may be just having a meal. And it doesn't have to be perfect. She doesn't need to go and get the most nutritionally balanced meal. Is it ideal? Of course. But just her having something to eat is a win. So again, gentle nutrition principle 1, anything is better than nothing. Now, gentle nutrition principle 2, protein helps when you can manage it. Protein stabilizes blood sugar and can help with energy and mood. And I know this to be fact. I feel better personally when I have when I eat foods that are higher in protein and lower in carbs and fat. So I'm not speaking on diet culture. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do. I just noticed for myself that when I eat a protein-led diet, that I tend to feel better and more energetic. My mood is better, and definitely my blood sugar is more stable. I have noticed that. Now, some easy protein options: Greek yogurt, string cheese, peanut butter, hard-boiled eggs. You can even buy them pre-cooked, although I prefer to cook my own eggs. I just think they taste better. For me, when I get them from the grocery store and they're pre-cooked, they're kind of rubbery and they don't taste as good to me. You can also get deli meat. I personally am not a big fan of deli meat, but again, that's a quick source of nutrition. So if you enjoy deli meat, there you go. Protein bars. There are a number of good protein bars out there. They have come leaps and bounds. So if you say, protein bar, if you haven't tried one in a while, I would suggest visiting like the Vitamin Shop or, many stores sell them, and trying out various protein bars. There are some that taste like a candy bar. for instance. They've come a long way. Not every meal, not perfectly, just when you can incorporate those protein options, because it definitely helps. Gentle nutrition principle number 3: hydration matters. Depression makes you forget to drink water. Keep a bottle of water next to your bed, and flavor if plain water is hard. There's this and I can't think of the name of it right now, but there are these water bottles that you can get that helps to flavor the water. And there's some that you can infuse the water with fruit, but I'm talking about this particular bottle. It flavors the water as you drink it, and it's quite good. Some flavors are better than others, but again, taste is highly individual, so you have to find those that work for you. But that is an option. But you definitely need to watch your hydration. But even small sips count. So just sip on water throughout the day. You don't have to, take a gallon of water to work and down it. You don't need to have a big jug that you drink so much in an hour. For now, this is gentle nutrition, just small sips. And I even have this cup that I think my nephew bought it for me years back, and it lights up to remind me to drink water, and I really enjoy that. And I often have people ask me about it, so that helps me to remember to take my sips of water. Now, gentle nutrition principle number 4: you need to give yourself permission to enjoy food. Food is one of the few pleasures available during depression. I mean, when you think about it, when you're going through depression, everything feels impossible. You don't want to be around people. Well, for some people, food is one of the few pleasures that are still available. You don't have to make it harder by restricting yourself. Because again, if you're going through a depressive episode, if you're battling depression, and again, I know that the battle is ongoing, but if you are going through a difficult episode, the goal is to get through that episode and get back on your healing journey and get to a good place. So you need to eat what sounds good, what brings you comfort, eat what you can manage. Again, for some people, just eating is the goal. Your body deserves nourishment and enjoyment. So I'm not advocating for binge eating and eating out of control. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that if you are battling depression and you are on that, if you're using food for comfort during that time, until you can use other means that's actually beneficial to you, until you find other alternatives of comfort that works for you. In this moment, the main thing is for you to be able to get through and survive that depressive episode. So we're not talking about intuitive eating. There's a time and a place for that. But right now we're talking about your mental health. And again, until you deal with your mental health and the source of your depression, maybe is, dealing with that trauma that you've been suppressing. Maybe it's dealing with the stress of an abusive relationship and dealing with that, dealing with the stress of a toxic employment environment. You have to deal with the source of what's triggering your depressive episode in order to get on the path to healing. And you'll hear me say this often, but healing is not linear. You'll have good days and bad days. But the goal is for the good days to outnumber the bad. But when you're having bad days, bad moments, i.e. depressive episodes, you need to deal with your mental health at that moment in time. Now, here are some practical tools for dealing with depression eating. And they can help when depression and eating feel overwhelming. All right, so tool 1, the minimum baseline is what this tool is called. You'll create a minimum baseline for eating, the absolute minimum you aim for each day. For example, 1 meal, 2 snacks, and water. That's it. Not perfect, not healthy, just something. And on hard days, meeting the minimum baseline is enough. So again, we're back on the other side of the coin. If you're having difficulty eating due to your depression, then just, use this tool. Establish a minimum baseline. Tool 2, the depression drawer. You'll keep a drawer, box, or maybe you'll have a shelf with non-perishable snacks, foods that don't require preparation, things you can eat even on your worst days. When leaving your room feels impossible, when getting out of bed feels impossible, you have something within reach. It may not be the healthiest food, the most nutritionally balanced food, but it's something to get you through that time. Tool 3 is the 5-minute timer. Can't make a meal? Set a timer for 5 minutes. Can you put something in the microwave in 5 minutes? Can you make toast? Can you grab a yogurt? You don't have to cook. You just have to get food into your body in 5 minutes. And this helps on both sides of the coin, right? If you are an undereater when you're depressed or when you're going through a depressive episode, then you have food there that is ready-made. You stick to your minimum baseline, and you go into your depression drawer and you find a quick food item. On the other side of the coin, it's the same thing, but you already have foods there, foods that you enjoy, foods that bring you pleasure. They're quick and easy, and many times, even if it's a pleasure food, let's say a frozen food from the grocery store, many times it's still much fewer calories and more nutritionally sound than what you get at a fast food restaurant. And it is most likely going to be less expensive because I don't know about you, but when I go to fast food restaurants now, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at the grocery store, but it's quite expensive. I can remember the days when you could go and get a fast food combo for under $10. It might be $7 at $8. But now, yeah, we're approaching 15 easy, 13, 15, somewhere in there, for a fast food combo. Now, there are some places that offer deals, and that's great. But again, if you can have your foods at home ready for you, you'll save money. It'll be most likely more nutritional for you. And it'll be right there. You don't have to put in a whole lot of thought. It's right there. You don't have to get up, go get in the car. If you have everything you need from your depression drawer ready for you, and it's quick and easy. Now, tool 4 is the No Shame Food Journal. If you want to track your eating, and you don't have to, and you're not tracking for calories, but for awareness, you can try this. Instead of what I ate, write how I felt before, what I ate, how I felt before, how I felt after, and what I needed. So it's not just the what I ate journal. It's more than that. So you do write down what you ate, but you also write down how you felt before you ate it. What were the feelings driving you to eat what you had to eat? And how did you feel afterwards? Again, if you feel shame or guilt, you need to change that narrative. And think about what your body actually is needing. What is your body trying to do for you? And why? This removes judgment and adds understanding. And that understanding is very important as you work to not only get on the path to healing your depression and making it more manageable, but also to healing the emotional overeating or undereating, or eating more nutritionally sound foods. Tool 5, outsource when you can. If you have any resources, then you can get your groceries delivered. You can order pre-made meals, and the pre-made meals are wonderful. I've done that before, and it helped me greatly. I was able to go into an app and look at various meals and decide, what meals I wanted to have delivered. And it was so easy. And I would just get those meals and take them to work. When I got home from work, it was just grabbing a meal, heating it up. Everything is ready to go. For the most part, tastes pretty well. And I say for the most part because, there were some meals I like better than others. And simply, if I didn't care for that particular meal, I would just order something else that I like better next time. Because you'll learn what you like and dislike. But it's very, very good for maintaining that control over what you're eating and having it ready-made and something that you enjoy, something that's tasty. And in many cases, nutritionally sound for you. Because you can order based on whatever you need nutritionally. As I spoke earlier about, my body feels better when I have a nutrition-led eating plan. So I look for protein-led eating plan. So I look for things that have a higher protein content. And that works better for me. My body seems to like that. So that is a wonderful resource and tool if you can manage it. You can ask a friend to bring food, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a good friend, they will, and you are going through an episode, they will not mind at all bringing you food. As a matter of fact, they would welcome it, I would imagine, because if they're a true friend, they want to be there. They want to do what they can when they can. So if they are able, they will be there and they will bring you that food, and they will be happy that you asked them to do so, because you're including them and you're letting them in instead of shutting them out. Because remember, a lot of times when we're going through depressive episodes, we tend to self-isolate, and our friends don't know what to do with that. But if you ask them to bring you something to eat, many times they will. And I'm not saying have them pay for it. And some friends will, but just send them some cash. There's many ways to do that. I'm not going to go down the list. You know how you can send them some quick cash and they can bring you something to eat, and it'll be cheaper in most cases, because food delivery, although it's a resource, again, if you have the means, it is a resource. I've used that too in the past, especially when I've had medical issues and I couldn't get around and cook and do all those things very much. The food delivery was great, but it is expensive because we're talking about service charges and tips and fees added in. So if you have a friend that can do that for you, that's wonderful. Use whatever shortcuts you can afford. So your budget better than anyone. And again, financial wellness is important too. So don't do anything that's going to jeopardize your finances and put you in a bad position. Do what's affordable to you. And remember, survival isn't about doing it the hard way. It's about doing whatever works. Highly individual, very personal to you. You decide what will work for you in your personal situation. Not what works for your neighbor, not what works for your coworker, your friend, your spouse, what works for you. This is about you. Now, let's talk about when you need to seek help. Because I spoke about, being diagnosed with depression. But I know that there's probably someone out there listening who has not gone to the doctor, has not gone to see a therapist, has not received an official diagnosis, but is having a difficult time. If depression is making it hard to eat at all, or if it's driving you to overeat, and I'm not just talking about eating for comfort, but, if you're skipping meals, binging, losing your appetite is going crazy. If you're going days without eating, or if you're eating until you feel pain, your stomach hurts and you're still continuing to eat, or again, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you're not eating at all and your energy is depleted, hair falling out, whatever the case may be, that's a sign that you need more support. If depression is severely impacting your ability to function, please reach out to a therapist who understands depression and eating, a psychiatrist to discuss medication options, a doctor to rule out any physical health issues, because that's important too. And if you don't see a psychiatrist, which, I do recommend if you're having a severe depressive episode, or it doesn't necessarily have to be severe. If you're having a depressive episode, there's nothing wrong with going to a psychiatrist or a therapist. Please remove that stigma and get that voice out of your head that's telling you to just deal with it. People are going through worse than you. Just pray through it. You don't have enough faith. You're weak. Get all of that out of your head. There's not a thing wrong with it. It's actually very smart and healthy to seek help through a therapist or a psychiatrist or even your doctor, because your doctor can prescribe, I keep wanting to say subscribe, can prescribe medication for you to help you deal with your mental health issues. But the good thing about your family doctor, your MD, is that they can also rule out other physical health issues. And a psychiatrist is an MD too. But what I mean is your family doctor can help rule out those physical health issues. Or even a trusted friend or family member, someone who understands. And you'll know the right person. If you confide in someone and they make you feel worse, then they're most likely not the right person. And remember this, depression lies. Depression tells you there's no point in getting help. But there is. You deserve support. You deserve treatment. You deserve to feel better. And there is no shame in getting help. I can't say that enough. And you're certainly not alone. And let me tell you something else that's true. If food is the only comfort you have right now, that's okay. If eating is the only thing that feels good, that's okay. If you're surviving on whatever you can manage, that is okay. Depression is heavy. Depression is relentless. Depression makes everything harder. And you are still here. And that means you're stronger than you think. Food isn't your enemy. Shame isn't helping. Self-compassion is the way forward. One day, one meal, one bite at a time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be here. And you are. And you may say, well, Glow and Flow is about healing from emotional eating, and it is. But it's also about healing your depression, your anxiety. It's about managing your stress. Your burnout. The things that's driving your emotional eating. Because again, you have to deal with the source before you can begin healing. Until next time, glow through the darkness. Flow with compassion for yourself. And remember, you deserve gentleness, especially from yourself.